Hello, and welcome to Candidates Up Front. This is a public interest election program of Berks Community Television and the League of Women Voters of Berks County. Our May 16th primary election is coming up. Democrats and Republicans will vote for judges, school directors, and county, township, borough, and city officials. The deadline to register to vote is May 1st. To check your voting status, go to votepa.gov. That's vote.pa.gov. You can register, change your party, locate your polling place, or apply for an absentee or mail-in ballot. The deadline to register is May 1st. The deadline to apply for a mail-in ballot is May 9th. The League is interviewing those candidates who wanted to be interviewed in contested races. For each race, the candidates will get the same basic questions and the same amount of time to answer them. Hello, I'm Judith Cranus, a member of the League of Women Voters of Berks County. There are 3 candidates competing for a chance to be judge of the Court of Common Pleas. They are all cross-filed, and that means they're on the ballot for both the Democrat and Republican Party. And those 3 candidates are Justin Boder, Jill Scheidt, and Kurt Geishauser. Now, voters across the county will vote for 2 on the fall ballot. The Court of Common Pleas hears trials of major criminal and civil matters. It hears matters involving children and families, and it hears appeals from minor courts. The term is 10 years. The salary will be $212,495. Now, please remember the opinions expressed in the interview are those of the candidate, not necessarily those of the League of Women Voters or of BCTV. So our interview today is with Jill Scheidt. Welcome, Ms. Scheidt. Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
And would you please start by telling our viewers about yourself and why you're running?
Thank you, Judith. And thank you, BCTV and the League of Women Voters, for this opportunity. It's an invaluable resource to get to meet candidates who are running for office in Berks County. I am a 1989 graduate of Penn State University, where I studied psychology. And I then went to Villanova Law School, graduated in 1992 with my Juris Doctorate, sat for the bar exam, thankfully passed it the first time I took it, and started working right here in downtown Reading in private practice. I spent 4 years doing civil litigation, both plaintiffs and insurance defense, personal injury litigation. I tried a variety of different cases as a young lawyer here in the courthouse in Reading and beyond throughout the state. I then went into practice for myself, and for the last 26 years I have been with various firms, and I'm currently a partner at Massano Bradley, where I concentrate in civil litigation and family court. And my 30 years of practicing law in Berks County and my psychology background make me uniquely situated to be qualified for this position.
Well, I'd like to hear more about how the psychology fits in with that, and that's one of the personal qualities that you would bring to being a judge. And tell us what all those are.
Well, thank you. That's a great question. When I was an undergrad, I was very interested in psychology, and I sat for the GREs. I considered getting a PhD to become a clinician, and I also sat for the LSAT, and I decided law school won out. And I find the mental health piece of practicing law and the problem-solving skills that judges need to have been very significant in the field. I believe that it is accurate how the media or movies, Hollywood portrays what lawyers and judges do, but we don't spend a lot of time trying cases. 95% of cases do not go to trial. Only about 5% of them do. The rest of the time, we as lawyers and as judges, we are problem solving. We are trying to help the people who appear before us. Yes, we are making legal decisions, and having experience and legal acumen and being decisive are very important qualities, but understanding personality disorders, addiction, and those types of issues are paramount in the role of both lawyers and judges.
Mm-hmm. Are you involved in any community work or civic organizations locally? And tell us about those.
Yes, both my husband and I have been involved in many. I used to be a musician. He's a musician. I'm proud to say I was board chair at Reading Musical Foundation. I was on that board for about 13 years. He and I endowed a scholarship for students who wish to study jazz or go to summer camp. I have been on the Wyomissing Area Education Foundation board. I'm a past president and still a very active member of the Berks County Bar Association. And that is a platform on which I provide pro bono legal services to people in the community. Just in January, I participated in an expungement seminar that was hosted by Senator Schwenk and various MDJs and the Bar Association. A dozen of my colleagues interviewed over 100 people who were looking for expungements or pardons.
So you have been doing quite a lot. I have to ask what instrument you played.
So in my other life, I was a clarinet player, and I love music. I went to Penn State to be in the Marching Blue Band, and I played for a while, and then my practice got to be a little too much to be able to continue to be a musician. I hope to get back to it, Judith.
It's a good thing to get back to. They say it helps the brain survive.
Once this
my
campaign
personal
is
opinion.
over, I'll have some time once this is over.
Well, let's get into part of the judgeship thing, because you're going to be calling people for jury duty. Can you tell us how you would explain to citizens the duties they would have as jurors and why it is so important that they serve?
Absolutely. Jury duty is an enigma, because people in the community and my friends, when they get called, they're immediately they're either worried about how they're going to manage it, or they're intimidated by the process. Once people get over those obstacles of what does it look like, where do I park, what kind of case, how many days will it be, and they realize their employers have to support them in doing it, people love it. It is of paramount importance. The system doesn't work unless we are willing to volunteer and come in. And I would tell anybody who's worried about jury duty or has questions about it, you will learn so much about how the system works, about civil procedure, criminal procedure, and you'll love it. And if you're ever in a position of being charged with a crime, or you have a civil dispute that requires a jury, you'll be grateful that there are people in the community willing to come in. And the jury trials I've had, people have taken it very, very seriously, and I've thanked them afterwards and discussed with them, because lawyers and judges are allowed to speak to jurors most of the time afterwards, and they love it.
I have had that experience on a federal panel, and I agree completely. I just got a new summons to fill out the form. I'm hoping I'm chosen, because it was just such an enlightening place to be. And we are a country where we are judged by a panel of our peers. Mm-hmm. Nobody who is in higher authority but our peers, people just like us, which is why it is so critical. I didn't mean to be taking up your time. I apologize for that. Tell us, if you're elected, what area would you like to serve in? We have criminal, we have civil, we have family, we have special courts. Tell us why you would make the choice you would make.
If I had to choose, which I don't, I must be clear, the president-judge chooses where we sit, and based on what the community needs. We have 13 commissioned judges in Berks County. I could sit on day one in any one of them. I've done criminal work, I've tried jury trials, non-jury trials, custody, divorce support, civil medical malpractice, adoptions, PFAs. I could sit anywhere. If I had my choice, though, and that's the question, I love variety and I love to work. I work a lot as a lawyer. I will do the same on the bench. I would, and I love the psychology component of it. Why do people do what they do? How do we help them once they've done it? I would love a combination of criminal and family court.
Very interesting. Now, Pennsylvania is one of 2 states that does not provide any state funding for the public defender's office. And public defenders, therefore, are funded by county taxes, and that does result in disparity from one judicial district to another. So how do you feel about this funding issue? I realize as a judge you can't control it, but judges, I think, can talk to legislative representatives to say why, whatever. So what are your feelings?
This is a really interesting topic. I am aware of it. We have 67 counties in Pennsylvania, and it is up to each county to provide the criminal indigent defense to those criminal defendants who qualify. I can tell you that Berks County, and like I said, I've been practicing it'll be 31 years this year, does a fantastic job of funding. And some of the finest criminal defense lawyers are in the Berks County Public Defender's Office. Other counties do not. So it's a tension, because there's a rule, and I was capital certified at some point. If you want to try a capital case in Pennsylvania, you have to meet certain qualifications of education, number of trials you've had, and years of experience. So we have these expectations of defense lawyers with inadequate funding in some of the counties. And I am active in the state bar, and I hear that some of these counties don't have adequate funding. It needs to be addressed by the legislature.
And you would be willing to be a voice then to make that more even? I
would be willing to provide whatever information I believe. I mean, judges, as you said, we're somewhat handcuffed, but we are stakeholders in that we can provide information. Berks County is adequately funded, I believe, and the commissioners understand that. And if a judge sees that a criminal defendant is not being adequately defended because there's a conflict or something like that, the judges have the ability to appoint an attorney for that particular defendant. So I recognize that it's an issue, but in Berks County, we're good.
We're good.
We're good.
Good
and they are fine lawyers in the Public Defender's Office. I respect them.
Thank you. Could you give us your views on plea bargaining?
Yes. Plea bargaining is this concept, this practice that happens, like I said earlier, 95% of cases. It's a stunning statistic to me, and it has largely remained the same, whether it's criminal, civil, or family. But 95% of cases resolve in some type of agreement. And in criminal court, most of the time, it is a plea bargain between the prosecution and the defense. I think plea bargaining has a solid place. It gives predictability and control over the litigants, including the victims of crimes, as to what is going to happen. Avoiding trial and negotiating a plea and the sentence is a very, very important process and option for defendants and victims and the Commonwealth. Now, there are times where there is a negotiated plea, but then the judge decides the sentence. That's called an open plea. That has a role too. But I am very supportive, and I believe plea bargaining is a very important component of the criminal justice system.
Thank you. If you're sentencing a convicted criminal, what factors should be considered? What factors would you consider?
In sentencing, there's sentencing guidelines. There are factors that are statutorily required to be considered, such as age of the defendant, educational background, mental health history, drug or alcohol history, prior criminal history, the family life of the defendant, the nature of the crime. Does the community need protection from this particular person, whether or not there's restitution, the person's work history, all of that. We leave no stone unturned when deciding a sentence. The probation department plays a role in doing investigations. The Commonwealth, the victim has the absolute opportunity to come in and needs to be heard when sentencing a defendant. All of that should be addressed. All of that should be given weight. People should have opportunities to address the court, present evidence, present statements. All of that needs to be looked at and considered when deciding an appropriate sentence.
Thank you. And when is an alternative to jail appropriate?
Often. There are criminals who will need to be sentenced to jail. There are people who, unfortunately, are violent and dangerous and cannot live among us. However, many people who are in the criminal justice system are nonviolent offenders. And we have seen, in my experience as a lawyer here, for 31 years, we have seen the pendulum swung the other way. We used to have a 3 strikes you're outlaws, war on drugs. Now we are more treatment-based. We meaning the entire system, is relying on research-based outcomes and principles to support defendants to keep the community safe and provide them with the tools they need to succeed on the other side. So we have, how do we keep criminal defendants accountable? How do we give them the support they need? The specialty courts we have, they work. I have represented many defendants who have gone through. Most of the time they end up pleading guilty. They end up on probation. Some of them end up in prison, but they end up getting the support that they need so that they don't reoffend and they can be productive members of society.
And my next question was going to be how you felt about the special courts. I think you've probably answered that, but tell us where we currently have them, and do we need others?
I am so glad you asked that question, because I've had a burning desire to run for judge for a couple of reasons, and one of them is this very question. You're the first person to ask me this. These specialty courts we have for veterans, mental health, DUI, drugs, veterans, those are the big ones. They work. They work. If a defendant comes into my office and is charged with a crime, I try to get to the root of how did we get here, and are you a candidate for one of these courts? In the past few years, I've spent a considerable amount of time in family court, where we have many of the same issues impacting the litigants in family court, but we don't have the infrastructure for these types of specialty courts. And as I sit here today, I do not know the solution, but I want to see if we can create something similar in family court.
So a specialty court that takes the needs of all the family members.
Yes. And building more bridges in the mental health community, because that is a big issue.
And I'm sure the addiction issue also can be an issue there.
The addiction issue is huge. We have more tools in the toolbox, I feel like, as a practitioner in these areas for addiction than we do for mental health. And I believe I watched specialty courts be created by other people who were very smart, and it required many stakeholders to get to that. And I would like to start that conversation to do something similar in family court.
Now, under what circumstances would you recuse yourself from a case?
So there are the obvious rules. If I know anybody, if I have represented one of the litigants before, and I have come to learn over 31 years, Berks County is a relatively small place. So if I know someone, I have to recuse myself. That's the easy part. The harder part would be I'd have to dig deep. If I felt an issue that came before me was either too personal for me, or I felt I couldn't be fair and impartial, I would have to have the courage to say to the president judge, I need to step out of this one and give someone a better shot, because I think my judgment might be colored here.
And tell us why the position of judge is so important that everybody should come out to vote for it.
So, Judith, you've heard this expression, all politics is local. As much as I hate to say this position is political, we are elected officials. Judges make decisions in the lives of everyday people. We are deciding divorce, support custody, DUI, adoptions. If you slip and fall on the street outside of the studio today, chances are your case will end up in front of a judge. You need judges who are familiar with your community, who have a broad, well-rounded depth of knowledge and decades of experience like I bring to the table. Everyone should vote. I am stunned at how few people vote in these municipal elections.
Thank you. We have about a minute, maybe a minute and 15 seconds for a closing statement.
Thank you. The time went really fast.
It does, yes.
I am asking for the voters in Berks County to vote for me on May 16th. I have over 30 years of experience in every area of the law here in representing Berks County residents. I am hardworking. I am competent. I am compassionate. I have the depth of substantive knowledge and the right demeanor to be your next judge on the Court of Common Pleas. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And this is Jill Scheidt, who's been sharing with us. We appreciate that. And viewers, I'm going to ask you to remember that there are 2 more candidates for a judge on both the Democratic and Republican ballot, Justin Boder and Kurt Geishauser. And you will vote for 2 of the 3. There are 2 open positions. And I'm going to remind you that if you'd like more information on candidates, you need to go to the League's online voters guide, vote411.org. And all you have to do is type in your address, and it brings up your individual ballot with the names of all the candidates, school directors, local township or borough officials. All that will come up, and where they have submitted information to the League, that will be there. And it's sometimes the only place you can find information on those local candidates. And your address, when you type it in, they don't save it. It's just to get you to your ballot, and then it's gone. So it's a very safe website to use. You want to be prepared when you vote, and we do want you to come out and vote. So please use the vote411.org, and I think you'll be very happy to see the amount of information you can get. So I want to thank you and thank Ms. Scheit. Thank you for watching Candidates Up Front. You will find the Candidates Up Front interviews on BCTV and on its website and its YouTube page. And for more information on candidates, you can go to the League's online voters guide, vote411.org. Or you can contact Berks County Election Services, elections@countyofberks.com. Their phone number is 610-478-6490. And thank you for watching Candidates Up Front.